that is a little small. Let's see if I can. There we go. So that's the cockpit. That's the glass. I'm going to select this layer, go and just recolorize it into a different color. Just say you said green, right? I'm going to save the file. Go back to Unity, and you'll see all the updates are.
Awesome. Nice.
Following the same logic, I'm going to go ahead and edit the model itself. Let's just say it looks good, but you know what? I don't like these turrets.
How does it know? How does it know what part of the PDF of the Photoshop file to include in the model itself? Like for instance, the red and the white. How does it map the both from Photoshop from the Photoshop image into the model? How does that?
That is done inside Maya. Let me open up the model and I'll show you how I manage that inside Maya. I'm going to double click on the spaceship model. It opens up a restricted application, which is Maya. Now, currently, this particular model is not assigned with any particular texture. If I will need to assign it with a texture, which I will right now, I will need to create a material, and through the color of that material, assign the texture to that particular model. Now, when the texture is not UV unwrapped, when the model is not UV unwrapped, the model itself is obviously a 3D object, and the texture is a 2D entity. So how does 2D entity knows where exactly we want a 3D model? So what we do is we take this model and we break it up into pieces, inside the texture space, not inside the physical model, but inside the texture space. We break it up into pieces and kind of unwrap it on top of 2D entity, like 2D square, and then use a 2D texture to map on top of the UV information of, or 2D UV information of 3D model. So,
do you have to bake the information into the model in order?
No, what you do is if you want to bake something, you can bake, for example, reflection information, or you can bake lighting information. So if you have something pre-lit, then you can bake that into texture, or you can paint those areas inside the texture. But that's the only reason you would need to bake to do the baking. The texture itself is kind of fully functional entity. You can model. So let me show you the pipeline right here. I'm going to duplicate this spaceship and do something unwise on purpose, because obviously when I model this, the UV information which will be overlaid on top of the texture space is not laid out the way I want it to be laid out. It's kind of automatically laid out, and usually it's not what you want, or 99.9% it's not what you want. So I'm going to go and kind of mingle it right now. Do an automatic mapping, and believe me, it's going to do a horrible job. All right, and map both of these spaceships. So we know this one is the good one, and this one is the one with automatic mapping. So this will be something you will get after just finishing modeling this particular spaceship. And then you would have to go and put some time into making it the way you want it to. And assign the same material. Actually, they do get assigned with the same material right away since I just duplicated it. So I'm going to go and apply texture to it, to both of them. Oh, it's a Photoshop file, right? the texture is already assigned. Let's see how it looks like. Now I can see that this spaceship completely makes sense, and this one is not. So the texture is just kind of there, but not specifically assigned the way I want it to be assigned. So looking at, this is a three-dimensional shape, and this is a three-dimensional shape. The texture is two-dimensional, so I need to break it up and unwrap it, three-dimensional object into two-dimensional entity to overlay, or to match it with two-dimensional texture. So looking at this particular model, the one with automatic mapping, take two. One good one with automatic mapping. Okay, so I'm going to try it one more time. All right, so one correct one incorrect one. So this is the UV texture editor. It's in there, texture window object color. I think there could be something wrong with the Maya software install. I just installed the new version of Maya, so that could be this window doesn't reflect the UV information. Let me see if there's any other way I can show it to you. Yeah. So here's the texture. How do I know where to lay all those elements out, and how to, where to paint the window, the cockpit, where to paint the nose of the ship, where to paint the wings, and how do I know all that? So inside Maya, what I do is, in that specific window, which I couldn't open right now, what I did is I created this kind of layout. So my three-dimensional ship looks like this. So once I unwrapped it, once I placed all the elements of the ship into a two-dimensional square, I exported that information, brought it into Photoshop, and started layering and started painting all of my elements. So I'm just going to go through all these layers and show you what they are. So when I start creating my my textures, what I usually do, I usually have the UV information on top of everything.
That flattened export that you just showed, does Maya do that for you partly, or how did you come up with that?
Through wisdom and meditation. The more you do it, more you do it, better sense you get, how to lay out your elements so they make sense, so they don't stretch, and it comes with experience. it's not as hard as like a spaceship like this, a low polygon spaceship like this is not as hard to UV unwrap as, for example, a fully functional monster, a complicated high polygon monster, you know, with millions of polygons. So that's a different story. So this unwrap, you know, probably will take about you know, anywhere from maybe 30 minutes to an hour and a half to unwrap completely.
And it's just a manual process?
It's a manual process, yeah. But, you know, because we work with low polygon models, you know, you build them, you build every single polygon, you always fight for, you know, the number of polygons you can cut out of your model, still keeping the shape. So you kind of have ownership of every single polygon here, so I know exactly where all those polygons are, and it's really easy for me to go and just break them up and make sense out of it. If you have more complicated models, yes, the process can take much longer. So usually you start with this, and what I do is I drop the opacity of this layer and then start building my texture from ground up. For example, this is kind of a base layer. So you take a photograph of a metal, or if you use stock photography, you take the texture of the metal, and you start identifying all these elements. You can see just darkening the areas. And then you layer another coat of paint, and then you layer another element of your texture, and another one, and just, you know, until you're satisfied. Some of these are photographic elements, some of these are painted elements, yeah, I'm not proud of these two, but so that's basically how you build the textures. So the last thing I want to do here is